Hi everybody, I'm Sin. Welcome to the Book Nook, where we talk about the awesomeness that is books, because I love it, you love it, that's why we're here. Today we're going to do our March reading wrap-up. I read 7 books in the month of March, and what's crazy is that last month I read 10, and it was a much shorter month, so I don't know. I don't know if it was the length of books I read or what it was, but 7 this month, and I thought they were all pretty good. I had a nice mix of horror, fantasy, fiction, and all that good stuff. So the first one that I read was The Wrong End of the Telescope by Rabih Alameddine. And this book was a story about a transgender woman doctor who goes to help the refugees coming over in Greece. And it's beautifully written. It's so poetic and lyrical in the way the author writes, and it's all these vignettes of her life, and it was really touching and really emotional in a very beautifully written book that I really enjoyed. It's funny because I saw this at the library and I randomly picked it up, or at least I thought I did, and then I went back and I had watched Supposedly Fun had talked about this, and I think it was like in my brain. So when I saw it, it like sent a signal. It was like, hey, get that book. Probably. Most likely. So the next book we read was All Day is a Long Time by David Sanchez. And this is a book about addiction and recovery. And the way this guy writes too, this was his debut novel. Holy crap. His descriptions and the way that he captivates you with his words, it's just beautifully haunting and sad, and another just emotional journey of a book. And this one I cannot recommend highly enough. Maybe you don't want to read something sad and emotional, but if you do, this is a great read. So the next one I read, this is the book In the Night Garden, and this was recommended by one of our friends, Axie McAxstuff, who streams over on Twitch. And this book was so freaking good. I loved it. It was absolutely so magical and so fantastical. It was cool because how it told the stories. So there's this girl who lives in this courtyard of this rich family. I believe it's probably a castle, and she lives out there, and she has these like tattoos all over her face, which she says are her stories, and she ends up being befriended by one of the royalty's children, and she tells him these stories, and they are so magical and fantastical, and each story weaves in and leads to another story, and it's so great. It's so freaking great. This Catherynne and Valente. And she also wrote a new book currently out called Comfort Me with Apples. I don't know anything about it, but that's her newest book. And since reading this one, I'm super curious to go check that one out. So if you guys have read that one, let me know what you thought of it. I'm curious. And also, let me know down in the comments. What have you read this past March? What are you reading? What do you want to read? Stuff about books. I want to hear it. So the next one I read was Feeding My Paranormal. I love the paranormal. Also, I got a new beanie. And this beanie is a haunted beanie. This beanie is actually I guess we'll call it a clothing line. There's t-shirts, there's hats, and there's like little backpacks. This is Adam Berry of Kindred Spirits, who is the co-star and co-producer with Amy Bruni. And this is his beanie. You can get them, I think, just on his website. I don't know if it's adamberry.com. I'll look it up. If you're interested, I'll put a link down in the bottom in the channel. So yeah, Life with the Afterlife. 13 Truths I Learned About Ghosts by Amy Bruni. This book was awesome. I have a standalone review of it. If you're interested in checking it out, I'll put a link down in the channel. Or actually, I'll put a card. I'll do a card. I need to get better at doing that. This book basically follows her life of how she got into paranormal, growing up with ghosts, her work on ghost hunters, and then up to current day with her and Adam Berry on Kindred Spirits. Kindred Spirits is in my opinion, one of the better ghost hunting shows out there, and they do a great job. And this book was awesome, real easy to read, enjoyable to read, and I highly recommend it. All right, next up, Must Be the Season of the Witch, yeah. Of course, I had to sing that. The Season of the Witch, How Occult Saved Rock and Roll by Peter Bebergal. This was a wild ride, because books are wild, of just how the occult had such a crazy influence on rock and roll, with the artwork and the posters and the symbolism and in the music and their lyrics, and it follows a bunch of different bands. It has, David Bowie and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and Black Sabbath and just all these different bands and how it influenced them and basically how it saved rock and roll. How did it do that? Well, read the book, find out. It's an enjoyable read. It was super fun and just really interesting to get a perspective on it. Check it out. Next up, we read The Lake of the Dead. This was a book that was written in 1942. It was a Norwegian crime novel with elements of paranormal, occult, and horror. It was one of Norway's best ever written novels, and it was recently translated this past February of 2022 into English. I don't know why it took so long. I enjoyed it immensely. And it's not that long of a read either. I think it was 186 or 87 pages, and I think I read it in about 2 days. And if you like horror and crime and trying to figure out what happened, was it paranormal or was it actually just criminal? Who knows? You'll have to read it to find out. And it was beautifully written. The cover art, I think, is fantastic. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a fan of those colors, that whole blue and purple and black. Obviously, I love those colors. But why is that obvious? Why is it obvious that I love those colors? I don't know. I wear black all the time. And then my beanies are purple and I like blue. It's not obvious. So yeah, I like those colors. But red is my favorite color, so who knows? I drank too much coffee today, and I'm babbling a lot. Anyway, this book was great. I recommend it. Check it out. Next up, and the final book we read for the month of March was The Great Witch of Brittany. This one gripped me from the beginning, and it was it made me feel all these intense emotions. I laughed, I cried, I felt so much anxiety at points that I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It was almost like, when you watch a movie and you're just on the edge of your seat. That's how parts of this made me feel. And it was so well written and so enjoyable. And it was one of those ones, another one I just couldn't put down. So I had a lot of really fantastic books for this month. I did have one DNF. We won't talk about that. But yeah, I had a lot of really fantastic books this month. And I thought the variety was pretty good. We had fiction, we had fantasy, there was horror, there was paranormal. All these are a few of my favorite things. Yeah, so that was my March wrap-up. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today in the Book Nook. Until next time, we'll see you later. La 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 la, doo-da, doo-da.